Welcome back, and joining us for a look at today's market moves is Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore. Thank you so much for your time, Viv. Talk to us about what you have seen in terms of the trading session today, and if any of that price action has anything to do with some of the expectations that we have for economic data points this week.
Yeah, look, I mean, one of the things I have seen is like the oil price is coming back a little bit closer to 80 for Brent crude at the moment, up about 1% or so. I've also seen the Rand, continue to weaken. It's currently about 16, 19, 16 or so. And the overall market, the rest of it, everyone is pretty much down by a bit, basically. So it's, the overall, negativity in the market at the moment is, pretty sort of universally South Africa right now.
Viv, over in the US, we do expect some catalysts this week in terms of economic data, one of those being the fourth quarter GDP print. Any expectations there? Because also I've been reading a lot of articles and reports with analysts saying that actually they expect US GDP to hold up.
Yeah, look, I mean, they're looking at about 2% annualized, but there has been some very strong periods in the US when we had 5% the previous period, up to 5% the previous period annualized. That's obviously too much growth for an economy like the US. It would make no sense for that to continue. But, if the US can go 2-3%, for long term, that's pretty much like where it grows historically over multiple centuries. And that's been the biggest economy in the world. And so the fact that we are seeing, a 2% annualized growth rate expected for the last quarter, though it's a drop from the previous one, it's still reasonably strong, I think.
All right. Well, here locally, monetary policy continues to be a focus, and we do have the South African Reserve Bank concluding its MPC meeting on a Thursday. Any expectations there? But also, will the absence of Kuben Naidu from the MPC have any kind of impact, as he's known as a dove?
I doubt it. I mean, I think the MPC has held up through multiple governance and through multiple, tools, people moving in and out of it, holding as one of the institutions in South Africa that has the greatest credibility, I would think. It's up there with any institution in South Africa, especially any government institution in terms of its consistency. I don't expect any change. We're not going to cut until the US cuts. It would make no sense for us because all that would do is weaken the Rand, and that'll just import inflation anyway.
Yeah. Quite a lot of company news came out of the JSE from the commodity space. Let's go into South 32 that had a production report today for the half year ended December. Of course, as a diversified miner, we did see output there being mixed when looking at the different commodities, but there was a lot of production guidance that was lowered. A spark of positive news there being the lowering of the costs. They expected to be in line or below the FY24 guidance. What did you make of that? Because also we did see the market knocking the share price down today.
Yeah, one important fact, it's just a thing that I like to look at any individual company for indications about what the whole country is doing. One of the key things in South Africa at the moment is Transnet. And they are saying that, the congestion at Transnet is causing them to have about $275 million of increased working capital. What that means is that normally they would sell the stuff and, have that money back into the system. But right now, this money is tied up because it's tied up at the port in congestion. And so $275 million, that's, talking close on over 5 billion rands. It's a huge amount of money to be tied up just because of delays in the Transnet system. And we also saw a report, coming out a little earlier, at least today, earlier that, about South Africa looking to spend about 50 billion on, revitalizing or sort of correcting Transnet. To the fact that, just one company is, has 5 billion held up because of it. That 50 billion does seem to be money well spent. We can solve the problem.
Yeah. Well, another company that I noticed the share price was down about 3% or almost 4% was Sasol. And actually, that is your stock pick for today. So if you can just tell us why that is your stock pick. But also, we do know that they had that virtual AGM that took place on Friday. They released the results on SENS today. What was quite interesting was that climate change report got a passed... it passed about 77% in the vote. And of course, this this is quite interesting because ahead of that, last year, we did have some of Sasol's biggest shareholders saying that they would vote against that climate change report. So why is it your stock pick, and did anything jump out at you from that AGM?
Yeah, look, I mean, a couple of things. Of course, when it comes to the AGM, I mean, Sasol apparently produces 12%, one-eighth of all the carbon emissions or greenhouse emissions in South Africa. So it's not a small player; it's a huge amount of it. And obviously, with what's happening in the world, etc., trying to control carbon emissions are important. And unfortunately, as well, they're not about a cost; it's a costly thing to do. So the fact that they're looking at 2050 for being zero, and by 2030 having these targets and so on, going to be costly, going to be difficult to achieve. But like you said, shareholders are pushing for some of the stuff to go through. Why I pick it is because in the current environment, you just saw over the last couple of days there was that a conflict between Pakistan and Iran. You've seen the Houthi stuff happening, pushing off the Red Sea. And if something like that does take off, it does become a huge issue. For instance, Iran could close off the Straits of Hormuz, through which a huge percentage of the world's natural gas and oil flows through it, would really have a huge impact on global, supplies. In that scenario, you'd find almost nothing's doing well except Sasol. And it's a nice hedge in this kind of environment to have Sasol. The share price is down dramatically. We're talking about, over the last year or so, down almost 50%, 48% or so, Julius. And at the moment, sitting at about, say, 158 rands a share. I think it's reasonable to have it in your portfolio just as a hedge against some of the uncertainty in the world at the moment.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and giving us insights on what has been driving in the market today, Viv. Really appreciate it. That was Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore.